Hello again, friend. I've got a story for you. Well, actually, you have a story for yourself, about yourself, that's impacting how you see yourself and how you're doing in this world right here, right now. So, what's your story about 2022? And what's the story you want to be true about the rest of your year? That's what we explore in today's episode using a prescribed 2-minute story format that I created for my clients. It was so powerful that I invited two of my Gal Pal clients to join me so I could share with you and you could hear some real life examples of how these 2-minute stories impacted them. Plus, you're going to have an opportunity to get these 2-minute story templates for yourself. By the way, I always ask my guests to take my quick quiz to determine their nail color persona and what their fave nail color reveals about them. It's a fun way to get to know them before we dive into our conversation. You can take the What's My Nail Color Persona quiz too. Just go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. Answer 3 quick questions, and in your results, discover your specific nail color persona, your built in strengths, and how to tap into those strengths when ship happens. Again, just go to livelikeyournailcolor.com/quiz. Now, let's get talking with my gal pals.
Tired of so much chip happening? Discouraged by so much downer news? Weary from chronic crisis? Don't let the chips keep you down. Welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, where the tips of your fingers and toes are ready to inspire you to not give up and to keep creating the business, career, and life you want. In each episode, we flip the chip and let our fun nail color with that crazy fun name cheer us on to remember our strengths, embrace the power of choice, see life as an adventure, and know resilience is only a touch-up or change-up away. Get ready for a good time and a good laugh with your host, Mary Foley.
Welcome back, Live Like Your Nail Color gals. What's your story for 2022? It's been said that you are the story you tell yourself about yourself, whether that story is in the past, present, or future. That's why the famous statement by Henry Ford rings true. He said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Recently, I gathered a dozen or so of my coaching clients together for a one-day retreat. It was about, halfway through the year, and it seemed like everyone needed a new shot of mojo, me included. When you feel that way, it's easy to withdraw and to not share what's really happening inside. And that's when you risk getting stuck in your story. When that happens, you might be living like the nail color, my story stinks. That thought in itself is a sign that it's time to flip the chip. You need to examine the story you're telling yourself about any situation in your life, and then rethink how you can tell yourself a more productive story, even when the facts are the same. And since your story isn't finished, there's a real power to tell yourself a story about the future as well. I mean, imagine the renewed energy you could feel if you consciously crafted the next chapter of your story before it even started. Well, that's what we did at the one-day retreat. Using a prescribed 2-minute story format that I created, each person crafted 2 stories. One story of their 2022 so far, and another story about the rest of their 2022. And it was so powerful that I wanted to share it with you so you can do it for yourself. And I thought, well, how can I make this come alive? Some of the real gals who were there, that would make it fun and real. So I invited 2 gal pals who were at the retreat to join me so you can hear real life examples of how these 2-minute stories played out. Plus, I will share how you can get these 2-minute story templates for yourself. So let's dive in and let me introduce you to my 2 gal pals. The first one is Yolanda Gray. She's an author, speaker, and certified holistic faith-based health coach for Christian women. She's all about women taking back their lives and overcoming obstacles. Hey, Yolanda, welcome back, because I know you've been here one other time to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me, Mary.
I'm glad you're here. And I wanted everyone to go like, okay, that's what Yolanda's voice sounds like. Okay, so next is Ellen. Ellen McIlhenny is the owner and the CEO of CFO Plus Services. She and her team work with business owners as a fractional CFO, bookkeeping services, and a trusted advisor to increase your business value, maximize earnings, and make smart decisions. And Ellen is really super smart. Ellen, welcome to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thank you, Mary. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so thrilled because it's almost like a really reunion, right, of the retreat that we did with all these other gals too. And it's great to be with you again. I still actually feel some of the lingering effects of our retreat time together. And I so appreciate your willingness to share your experience with that, but also your real stories, the 2-minute stories that you came up with and how that felt and what that experience was like. But first, before we get into that, I always ask my guests before the podcast to take my quiz called What's Your Nail Color Persona? I mean, this is the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, but after all. So I always want to ask, what was your nail color persona and did it nail you? What about you, Yolanda?
Glitter gal, yes. All right. It was right on.
Why is that?
Because I tend to live out loud and I like all things. I'm a pink fan for one thing, hot pink, my brand color. And I just like flashy. I don't know, bling.
Hey, you like shiny, right? You like things that just shine and just glitter, right? Exactly. Yeah. I know. And so hot pink, that's the other thing. Like, what is that your fave go-to nail color too?
If it has glitteries in it, yes.
This happens again and again. It's so funny that the gals that I often ask to be guests on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast, so many of them love pink. You can't make this up. Well, pink is the quintessential female color. And what I have found is that the more saturated the pink color you like and prefer, like you like hot pink, the chattier you are. See, because pink is friendly, it's welcoming, like it would be hard to really not like a pink preferred gal. They're just so fun. All right, cool. All right, so that nailed you, it sounds like. What about you, Ellen? What was your nail color persona?
So I have to say I'm a Naked Nelly. Not that I don't like nail polish, but I just never think about it.
Right.
And but if you were to nail me down, the French manicure, I don't like anything flashy. Yolanda and you and I are different in that way. But I do like manicured nails. I think it looks good. And so probably a French manicure.
So like if you were doing a special event, you'd get a French manicure?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I think so.
Right. So Naked Nelly, do you remember the description of Naked Nelly? Do you?
Basically, I don't really care what people think. That's kind of true.
That's right.
I'm too old to worry about those kind of things.
I don't know if it was so much old. I mean, I bet you had some of that going on when you were in your 20s and 30s too.
Yeah, maybe.
Right. Okay, that's right. And I that's actually why when I years ago wrote the book Live Like Your Nail Color, I wrote even if you have naked nails, because I think that's the state of a lot of women is they prefer naked nails. The other thing is that a lot of gals who are Naked Nelly on their fingertips have painted toenails. They're living like their toenail color, but if you're naked on top and naked on the bottom, you're a totally Naked Nelly. All right. And that means you're willing to be your true authentic self, show it to the world. And if in your case, and if they're not like so happy about that, you're just going, well, that's me. So what? All right. So that's, great. All right. So we got a glitter gal and a Naked Nelly. This is perfect. Two different. So when we look at these 2-minute stories and that whole story you tell yourself, you see, it applies. It applies across the board, I really think. But okay, so let's go back to our time together. It was early August. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being super duper, how did you feel about your 2022 so far at that point and why? Like before we did any of these stories, you're showing up at the retreat. What's the number you would put how you were feeling about your life walking into that day? What about you, Ellen?
So I put it at a 6 simply because it's been incredibly difficult year business wise. And I have felt like it's just really hard for me to get out of this, whatever it is, rut I'm in. And so, so going into that day, I was feeling a 6 and I really needed that recharge of my batteries.
Okay. All right. Honest. I mean, by the time we got to then, it'd been 8 months into the year. Lots happened in 8 months. What about you, Yolanda?
Coming into that day, which I'm so glad that you provided for all of us, I was a definite 4. I had a major project plan that I was getting to almost every day and trying to create business, trying to generate revenue. And so both of them took so much time. And I felt unfocused, and I felt sort of like, what am I doing? And so it was just, I would say a 4. I wasn't halfway feeling good, and I was sure, I don't think I was even at a 6.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I thought you both were higher because you were happy to be there. Maybe it was because you were smiling and you were happy to be there. Like, maybe I can talk about this, or at least I can change up perhaps what's going on. And, of course, we did it in a group. There are about 12 of us. That helps a ton. And, one of the things I recommend is any guy listening, if you're like, oh my gosh, I really want to do this process, do it with at least one girlfriend. You can get a few together who are like-minded, and it really does elevate the whole experience, because you get just to say it out loud to someone else is one thing, and then to get feedback or support or comments, it's can be really great too. So, okay. So I'm going to dive into the activity, right? So that we can describe what happened, walk it through, and every guy listening can go, oh yeah. All right. Now I understand what you mean. So what we did, the first thing we did is we did what I call my 2-minute story of 2022 so far. So the cool thing about this is we did it early August. You can be listening to this podcast and you're in September or even in October. You can do this. Reality is you could do this 2023 and apply the same thing. But it was just this using the calendar year where you were at so far. And so the handout and the template that I created, I have at the top this quote that says, be grateful for all you have, but never settle for less than you can be. And I loved that because it's a focus on, all right, what went well, right? Kind of in a way, but also this isn't about settling. I want to do more, or I want to do different. And that was part of it. You mentioned feeling kind of stuck, Ellen, at one point. So how do you get unstuck? So I really do think that when you reflect on the recent past, the first thing we tend to do is think about the really emotionally loaded, hard moments. They were probably the first thing that popped in each one of your minds, and it's how our brains are wired. It just is. It's about protection and about survival. But that's sometimes where we stop. And that's where the stuckness can get started and then rooted. But it's really not the whole picture. We know that intellectually, but when we take some time to reflect more broadly, we see a truer picture of what's happened and what it means. So that's why I want to do this reflection of so far. Now, the other thing was the 2-minute story. Now, you and I know that what can happen is if I say, can you make that short story in 2 minutes? We have really no idea how long 2 minutes is, right? And then even if we set a timer, like I often do, right, on our phone, you start going and first you can't think of anything. Then you start telling the story. And then before you know it, boom, 2 minutes is up. And you really haven't done a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so I thought about story formats like once upon a time, here's what was happening. And then this happened. And then this happened. And because of that, then this happened. And then I responded and did this. So and in the end, then finally this happened. And that's really what I thought. And I thought it's a lot to figure out what I want to say and then to say it in 2 minutes. So this template was a way to guide everyone to say, focus here. So it was a fill in the blank, and I'm going to read it out loud so everybody can get an idea of therefore why your stories came out the way they did. So it starts out, my 2-minute story of 2022 so far. In January, I felt blank about my business, career, or life. So everybody got to pick. Now, we were all business owners and entrepreneurs. Most people pick something about their business, but there are some people that picked about their life, where they were at, right? So I think that's important that you pick an area. But I felt a certain way at the beginning of 2022. My big desires for this year included, and then on the sheet, it's 1, 2, 3, list up to 1 to 3 of goals or desires. Why? Because at the beginning of the year, we always like, this year, I'd like to accomplish these things, right? So kind of, going back and rewinding the tape, what would you have put in? And then the next sentence says, so far, I have blank. And the idea was to insert a super short comment about each one of those goals and desires. And some of those might have fallen off the map, like stop doing them, or you didn't want to do them, or you found out it wasn't a good thing to do them. But it was, maybe I accomplished it. Maybe I only got so far. Maybe I changed it. But it was just to be super short. So far I have blank, blank, and blank, because you have up to 3 goals. Then it says, as a result of this, one thing I learned that I'm taking forward is blank. So this is the part that goes, this is what I did, or this is what happened. But then to ask the question about, what did I learn from it that is valuable enough to keep with me going forward? Now that's a little bit more higher level thinking or consideration. But that's where the magic starts to happen. The processing that happens that can help you get unstuck if you're feeling stuck or in a low point, but also if you're feeling good, to truly appreciate and maybe hadn't processed on, what did I really learn from this? I mean, I'm happy it went well, but what did I learn that I'm going to take forward to continue to do or to keep in mind? So that was the next sentence. And then it ended this way. Today I'm feeling blank about my business, and what I'm most excited about is blank. So it starts with a feeling, it ends with a feeling, but it actually doesn't completely end with a feeling. It's, I'm feeling this way. And I purposely put in this, what I'm most excited about is, because no matter when you go through this process and you fill in these blanks for your 2-minute story, there's always a future. There's always something ahead. And so to identify to yourself what you're most excited about helps us all to propel into the future a bit. And it's like honoring the past. This is what happened. This is what I learned. This is what it was worth bringing forward. Now I'm feeling this way, and boom, then you almost focus on, so I'm most excited about this, which is something in your business, your life, or your career. So those were the fill in the blanks. And I know what we ended up doing at the retreat, since we had 12 people, is split up into groups of 3. We're able to talk through, share, fill in those blanks. And it wasn't so much just about filling in the blanks. It was helping each other process that. Then came back as an entire group, and everyone shared. And if you remember, I asked one gal, all right, can I get a volunteer who would be a timer? Remember that? And so they used their phone, and most people were at 2 minutes or below. Some of them were below. Some of them might have been like 30 minutes or 30 seconds more. But really that 2 minute, it really worked. And I thought, if we all could have a 2-minute story of the last, in this case, it was the last 8 months, but are so far, that's pretty powerful, because it helps us to focus in on a few things. So we can remember, like, what did I do? Right. I remember there's a lot of things like, what was January? What was January 2022? That's a long time ago. And how did I feel then? Okay. So that's the format. So what I would love for each of you to do is to share your experience of creating that 2-minute story. And then what is your 2-minute story? And who would like to go first? That would be like the teacher. Who would like to go first? Raise your hand. Oh, Ellen. Ellen, fantastic. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Yolanda.
I was like, that's right. That's right. Yolanda's like, she goes first. She's nudging her. All right. So yeah. And what was the experience of creating and that story, filling in the blanks, using the template, I guess, is really the question.
Well, it's really funny because when you first pass them out, I'm one of these kind of people that I just start working on it immediately before I even get instructions. And so you were sitting there giving us instructions and I'm writing. But I will tell you, it forced me to think about things that and to come to terms with things that I've just kind of been pushing past because just trying to get things done,
Yeah.
and that's not a good way for a business owner to be. You need to be able to look back and look forward and not get caught up in the minutia of the business, which I tend to do sometimes. And so it helped me do that more than anything.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I love it. It forced me to come to terms with the thing. Like that's pretty big language, but I love the fact it's just, I mean, we didn't have time. I mean, it's so true. Day after day after day. If you're running a business, you're running your life, you're running your career. If we don't build in some time or somehow take some time to process and reflect, why would we? We're like, okay, that or sleep. I know which one I'm picking.
Okay.
I mean, seriously. Cool. Okay. So what's your 2-minute story of 2022 so far?
Okay. So in January, I felt overworked, overwhelmed, and I was in a lot of physical pain. I was having some leg problems. And so all of that about my business, career, and life. And my big desires for the year were to hire another full-time employee, to reduce my working in the business hours, and double my revenue, mainly from the bookkeeping side of my business, which is where I'm less concentrated. So far I have.
I was just those are pretty aggressive goals.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. No slacker for Ellen there. Okay.
No, reduce my hours and increase my revenue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, anybody who can do that, that's pretty good. But what I did is I hired another full-time employee. I did reduce my hours working in the business. She really took up a lot of the slack, and just it's worked out so well. And I, if you look at my trailing 12, which was August of 2021 through July, I have in fact doubled the revenue of my business. So
that's amazing.
Having that extra person has just opened up a lot of doors for our company, and so I'm really thrilled about that. So as a result of all of this, I did get help for my legs, and I'm not in so much pain anymore. But I did realize that there is way more to life than scaling a business, growing a business, because it is a lot of hard work, and you have to be completely dedicated. Not that I am not, but I've got a lot of changes going on in my family. My husband just retired and sold his business, so but it helped me to really realize that I've got to make room in my life for all that's going on. And so I think I've done the steps that need to be done. So today I'm feeling a little uncertain because of I'm not sure how much I want to scale because of all the changes that are going on. But I've just always had this drive that I can't tamp down. So I'm probably going to be working till I'm 80 years old. Who knows?
As long as you're enjoying it, right? Get that some.
As long as I'm enjoying it, I don't care. But I do need to balance a little bit more. So what I'm most excited about is I am starting now that I've freed up some time. I am starting a podcast this fall, which is going to give me the opportunity to talk to small business owners who want to scale their business. It's all going to be centered around business growth,
right?
People growing their business, and so I'm really excited about that. I got some people helping me start it, and I've actually had a meeting for the last steps that I have to do in order to get this thing started. So very excited about that.
I'm so excited for you on that one.
Thank
And I
you.
remember that earlier in the year, you kept going, oh, I got to get to this podcast. I mean, I want to do it and such, but you just didn't have time.
That's right. And so now I get to do the things that are fun. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about it. Yeah.
Which is huge to say, well, it's not just cutting back on hours, and it's doing that which is more enjoyable to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So uh, I love that story. It's very succinct. I can follow it. Can you follow it, Yolanda?
Yes, absolutely.
So now, Glitter Gal, your experience with coming up with this 2-minute story, what was that like?
I loved getting in the group. When I first saw it, when I first saw the sheet, I was sort of like Ellen. I started filling in the blank too, because I'd like to move ahead. But when we got together in the groups to sort of help each other work through it, because some of the women were like, oh, I don't know. And it gave us a chance to get into the feelings, because, I'm a glitter gal, that's where I come from, and get into the feeling of what are we really experiencing. Maybe we're experiencing a downturn in our business. Maybe we're not where we wanted to be or where we thought we were going to be. But what does that feel like? Because most of the time, and Ellen can, and you too, Mary, can attest, we just plow through. I don't stop too much to think about what I'm feeling, because I just need to keep going. And so it just gave me a chance to really to get into all of that, which is, I think, is so important, just to name them, look at them, and move forward.
Yeah. I was talking to a gal today, and she said she was talking to another gal. You know how it is. We all talk about not just one another. Just kidding. But anyway, she was sharing about a gal who has a phrase, healing from the hustle.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And I immediately thought, I know what that means. And I do think we need to hustle in terms of hustling ourselves. We'll get over the things and do the actions that we want to do. But I realize that hustle has been also associated with just wearing ourselves out. Right. And so that speaks to what you were saying. So tell us, what is your 2-minute story of 2022 so far?
In January, I felt hopeful, inspired, and tired from a year of moving around from one state to another and getting into our home and getting it all set up. I mean, I don't think that finished happening until maybe June of this year. So in between there, I'm working, and in a partially constructed office, which it did get finished, thank God. And my big desires for the year included finishing a book that I had started 8 years ago, needed to be finished. This was the year. The second was the program that was going to go around it, or what I was going to offer behind that book. And then, which was a work, it's going to be sort of more of a workbook. And then the third thing was to go ahead and have that retreat in Virginia, where I moved from, to go ahead and promote that, to plan it, and to execute it, which will happen in October. So far, I have continued to write. 2 chapters down. 2 chapters to go. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have developed that program outline, and I am continuing promotion for the retreat until mid-September. Now, in between that, I didn't say anything about my revenue, but I did pick up 3 clients in that, I don't even know how that, to tell you the truth. I was still doing I have a Facebook group, so I was still talking in there. And so I did get 3 clients in the first 6 months. And as a result of this, the one thing that I learned that I'm taking forward is I can only focus on one thing at a time properly, because I don't have a team. It's me. I'm doing all of it right now. So I work, and so I focus on the one thing, and working around the obstacles that are part of life. And just don't let them get you down. That's how I talk to myself. And then and because they're not going away, because life is life, and a lot of things happened over this past year, which were life changing. So it was about doing the work, being consistent, and being courageous. And those were my 2 words: consistent and courageous. Be consistent and courageous.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I'm feeling hopeful, inspired, and encouraged. So same 2 words I started with in January. I'm still hopeful and inspired. And what I'm most excited about is because of what you did for us that day, I even got more clarity into like, this is what I'm going to focus on. Period. That was the best gift of the whole day. And seeing all of you.
So so that last sentence, what I'm most excited about is like completing these 3 big goals. Like I know I'm most excited because I know exactly for sure, again,
yes,
what I'm focused on, and I'm excited to pursue them.
Exactly. And not pay attention to what I can go in 150 directions. That's the glitter girl in me and the shiny objects.
True.
Get distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And I just need to be right here. And behind that, I say this for all 3 of us too, is there are unlimited possibilities.
Right.
There's just, I don't know what's out there. I'm just going to do the work.
To be unlimited time, energy, and resources, right? So you're right. Picking a few and staying consistent and courageously saying no to many other things that can come into your life. That's a big one. Okay, so thank you both for sharing that real life example. All right, when you were done doing the 2-minute story of your 2022 so far, was there a particular feeling or insight or shift that you experienced by just doing that 2-minute story? Yolanda, you started to say some about already.
Yes, it was that whole idea of like, wow, I hadn't even taken the time to do this, it was so important. And to have other women like you said, you can still do this with another person. Absolutely. I don't do any of what I do alone, in the work of entrepreneurship. It's lonely and tiring and hard. Mm-hmm. So, I like to be gathered. And I think that's really what happened. And then listening to everybody else and then coming to that place of getting clear in my mind.
Cool. What about you, Ellen? Did you have a particular feeling right then or insight or shift that you experienced by looking back at your 2022 so far?
So, yeah, Yolanda, you kind of hit the nail on the head in that just being able to sit and discuss this with some of my peers. Yeah. I tend to, my job, except for my time with my clients, is pretty just me, and so when I do sit down and think about things, it's just me, unless I'm pulling somebody like Mary in to discuss it. But just being able to kind of bounce things off of these other women who are sort of kind of in the same place I am in terms of wanting to really be good at what we do. That's what I love about this group of women. Everybody is so not really driven, but they want to do their best. They want to be the best at what they do, and it's so nice to be able to just kind of discuss those kind of things and the clarity. I think that's the main thing for me. Just helping me gain a little bit of clarity about the next half of the year or less than half of the year.
Yeah, no, that's great. Clarity does create power. Just by its absolute focus, right? And when you're like, that's clearly what I need to do. And you like that and you want that, right? If it's clearly not what I need to do. I cannot say clarity is power when it's clear I need to unload the dishwasher. Okay. Ain't nothing other than how fast can I do it to get it over with? All right. But that's not obviously what we're talking about here.
And also, Mary, can I just add that getting that clarity energized me. So I struggle with low energy. I mean, I'm real high energy until about 3 or maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. And then I'm like, I want to be done. So it energized me because like when you know what to focus on, it's like you get in that zone. That happens to me. And I just stay there until I'm pooped. call it a day.
But then you feel good. It's okay. It's a good tire.
Yeah, because I did what I showed up to do.
Yeah. Great. Well, that's actually a great transition then about the next 2-minute activity we did, the next story we created, which was my next 2-minute story of the rest of 2022. And there's another quote that I found that I put on this handout that I gave you. And it says, you are not going to master the rest of your life in one day. Just relax. Master the day. And like you were saying, Yolanda, then just keep doing that every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it makes it feel more manageable, more possible, right? More reachable. And so the way this 2-minute story is laid out, it's first thing it says in the template is my single biggest desire or / dream for my business, career, or life. So you got to pick one of those for the rest of the year is, and then it was fill in the blank. And I think it was important when I created this is there's more than one thing all of us want to do or accomplish by the end of the year, but it was let's just pick one right now. And the cool thing is you can do this same kind of fill in the blank and template, and you can go back and say, what would be the second biggest thing I want to do? What would be the third biggest thing I want to do? Like you could do the same activity, but we're going to say it in 2 minutes. You go, and if there was, I think there's something that sharpens our focus when we say, what's the single biggest thing I want to get done before the end of the year? I want to say this happened this year. Mm-hmm. All right. And that starts to get our hearts and our minds really getting to where the clarity of what's really most important. You know, I love this thing of people say, well, I have these priorities. Actually, the term priority is singular. It's not plural. It was all meant to be what's the priority in your life, right? So this is the same kind of thing. If you only could pick one thing, what would it be? And then the next thing on the template is, this is important to me because. Now, most of the time we have that answer right away. You know, we pick this thing and we've already kind of really processed why is that important. But to write it down, and then the next line on the template says, and what that means is blank. So that's important to us because is kind of what it comes down to. So it's getting a little bit deeper than just the very first thing that comes to your mind, which is just not to say that's not important. It's just to say there's also probably a deeper driving reason that that's the top of the list. So this is about identifying that. And then the next part of the template says, if I do these 3 activities, and I had a 1, 2, 3. So the following 3 activities, I believe I set myself up for making this dream become a reality. Now, the idea of that is in the universe of possibilities of all the things you could do to make that one single thing happen. Well, you don't have the time, let alone probably the money or all the resources and the energy to do unlimited possibilities. So what are 3 things that you think set yourself up the best? So again, it's getting some clarity for yourself and decision making. And then the last thing was that we all said at the end of the year, I will thank myself for keeping at it and celebrate no matter what. So that's the template. And all right, so with that, I'm going to ask you each to share your story for the rest of 2022. And Ellen, can you go ahead and start and do that as well?
Sure. So my single biggest desire, dream for my business is for the rest of the year is I really want to grow the bookkeeping side of our business. We're just kind of starting out, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And this is really important to me because as I reduce my working in the business hours, it's important that that side of the business grow. So, and what this means is it's going to give me the opportunity to work on the business and to do my podcast and do the fun things, like I said earlier.
Yeah, right.
And then, so if I do these three activities, I believe I'm going to set myself up for making this dream become a reality. Number one, I'm possibly going to have to hire another person, which I'm fine with that. And I need to market the bookkeeping side better. And so what I've done is my youngest son is a senior at Virginia Tech in promotions and marketing. So I've hired him part-time to do some of that promotion work for me. And the third thing is I need to be, and we were just talking about all this, be more intentional about the time, how I use my time. I tend to get bogged down in big projects and things like that. And so I need to really think about how I'm using the time of the day. Is it the best thing for the business? So, and then at the end of the year, I'm going to thank myself for keeping at it and celebrate no matter what.
Amen.
That's right. Well, you know what? Listening to it, consuming it, so to speak, sounds like, well, yeah, that all makes sense. But for you to come to that and to write that 2-minute story, and at the end of that, what did that help you with? And did it help clarify? Did you feel more energized? What transpired for you?
Yeah, I'm just like Yolanda. The clarity and the energy that gave me to put it down on paper, because it's up in my head all the time, and it's like, I got to do this, I got to do that. That's not going to get things done by just keeping it rolling around in your head. In fact, it just increases the stress levels.
Yeah.
So getting it down on paper kind of took a burden off of me, because it's like I don't need it in my head anymore to remember, because I tend to forget things a lot. So it's down on paper in front of me. In fact, I've got it in my office looking at it so I don't forget.
That's great.
Because it's real important to me. This is really important to me.
It's clear. Well, when you ask that question, single biggest desire. Okay, so I asked you at the very beginning, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super duper, how you felt when you started, and you came in for that day. And Ellen, you said a 6. Yolanda, you said a 4. How did you feel walking out that day or at the end of the day? Ellen?
Oh, I was definitely a 10. That there was so much energy in that room, and Yolanda, that low energy lady, was dancing. I saw her. So
right.
You are no energy at all.
I love that. You seemed very light in your demeanor, Ellen. I remember that.
Thank you.
What about you, Yolanda? What was your number? You left.
Well, I want to say first that Ellen looked totally relaxed, and she had this cool vibe like the whole day.
So did you.
Amazing. She looked amazing, and I hadn't seen Ellen in over a year, so it was really cool to catch up. When I left, I was a definite 10. I felt like my feet weren't touching the ground. But see, I'm high energy, and I get energy from people. And then when the music starts going, well, then that just changes a bunch of stuff too. So there's just so many of us that were just sharing our hearts. And, the honesty was so gut wrenching. It was like, we're just sharing, and it's hard sometimes, but we don't give up, and we just, we need each other. That's how I felt.
Yeah. And I think that we had some gals who felt like, if I could just express to a group of people who are caring how I'm feeling and be honest, that in of itself would lighten my load.
Absolutely.
Right. So the 2-minute story template format helped with that process, because we all had something specifically to share. But it wasn't about impressing one another. It was about being honest with ourselves first, and having this caring environment to be able to either express and say, we had a couple guys just like, this is the first time I've said this to anyone, or certainly to a group, and it feels good to just let it out. We had some people that were, like many, like the two of you, it's easy to walk in there and think everyone else is doing great. Thank you for being open and sharing today, Ellen and Yolanda. This is great. Well, for those of you who would like to connect with either of you and the cool stuff, the work that you're doing, and just be a connection on social, what's the best way they can do that? Yolanda?
On Facebook, I'm Yolanda Gray, and have a private Facebook group for women. It's #TakeBackYourLife. I'm on LinkedIn, Yolanda Gray. Instagram, YGGRAY. And if you go to my website, I have a downloadable ebook called Overcoming Circumstances in Troubling Times, the message of hope and a way to get through some of the things we've gone through over the past couple of years.
Cool. I will put all that in the show notes. Okay. So people
Thank
can
you.
really click on them. What about you, Ellen? What's the best way someone can get in touch with you if they want to connect?
So the best way is through email. It's ellen@cfoplusservices.com. And then my LinkedIn, you can DM me on LinkedIn, and it's just Ellen McIlhenny, CFO.
Okay. Ellen McIlhenny, CFO. And I know people are like, how do you spell McIlhenny? Show notes. Okay.
Yes.
Right. That's the easiest way to say it. And of course, Gray, I always think with Yolanda Gray, Gray. But again, in the show notes, so to make it simple. Thanks again, gals. This has been fun. And thank you for helping me to help others, gals listening, to live like their nail color. Have I got a story for you? As you know, each week after my Gal Pal conversation, I always highlight one thing from the podcast that demonstrates how to flip a challenging, energy draining situation into a positive, energizing one. Whether you're feeling a bit stuck or uninspired by this year so far, or you're ready to shout, woohoo, I'm having a great year, I suggest you take a few minutes to clarify two stories you're telling yourself. One story is about your 2022 so far, and another story is about the rest of your 2022. By writing them down, you can either leverage that story for more goodness or change it to a more productive story that helps you move forward. And it's especially powerful to do with another gal pal or small group who know and care about you, who can give you feedback and who will cheer you on, bazookas and all. You can use the 2-minute story templates I created to guide you and make it easy. Download the story templates at livelikeyournailcolor.com/story templates. And my additional tip, let your nail color cheer you on as well. Put on a new color and give it the name Go Get It Pink, like Yolanda suggested, or Forge on Red, like Ellen suggested, or my name. Have I got a story for you? Whatever your name, every time you see your nails or your toes, you're reminded that the story you tell yourself about yourself now and for the future is powerful. So make it a good one. You can make good choices to create the career, business, and life you want. One step, one nail color at a time. Look forward to being with you next time on the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Live Like Your Nail Color podcast. Ready to live and laugh more? Know a friend who could use some of that too? Then subscribe at livelikeyournailcolor.com or your favorite podcast app and share this episode right now with the person who popped into your mind. Together, let's flip the chip to be stronger, smarter, and happier.